Gale tinanov enas y nunca gasta da idea de ficar lunge de casa. Ele morava na California como sus pais. Em apartamento moderno caio de tecnologia. Lunge do silencio das fazendas. Mas naquele verão, ele neo teve escola. Esue me insiste que ele passasse algum tempo com Esue abu. Grandma Isolda. Esue casa solada no campo. The farm was huge, surrounded by wheat fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. The house was old, made of dark wood, smelling of old books and carrying an eerie chill, even in the summer heat. The wind made the windows creak, and at night, the frogs croaked so loudly they seemed to be whispering to one another. On his first day, Gale explored the house, running to the hallways and opening creaky doors, until he found a room at the end of the corridor. Unlike the other rooms, this one was locked. "Grandma, what's in that room?" he asked. Grandma Isolda stopped cutting vegetables and looked at him with serious expression. "That room has been closed for a long time. There's nothing in there that concerns you, Gale." A shiver ran down the boy's spine. But that night, as he tried to sleep, he heard a noise. Something coming from the other side of the locked door. Soft tap, 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 like someone knocking slowly. Who could be there if it was just the two of them in the house? Gale tried to ignore the sound. Maybe it was the wind, a branch tapping against a window. Anything but what his mind was beginning to imagine. He pulled the covers over his head and shut his eyes tight, but the noise continued. Tap, 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 slow, rhythmic, as if it were calling him. The next morning, Gale woke up with a strange feeling, as if he had dreamt something but couldn't remember what. A chill crawled up his spine when he noticed that the door to the locked room was slightly open. He was sure his grandmother had locked it the night before. Gale's heartbeat quickened. With trembling hands, he pulled off the fabric. Beneath the sheet was an old mirror. Its wooden frame was carved with strange, distorted faces, and in the center of the glass, there was a long crack like a scar. Gale stared at his own reflection, but something felt off. His eyes in the mirror looked deeper, darker, and then, for just a second, he saw it. The reflection smiled, but Gale hadn't smiled. Gale took a step back, his heart pounding. He blinked several times, trying to convince himself that he had imagined the smile. But now, the reflection looked normal. His serious face, his frightened expression, swallowing hard. He slowly raised his hand, and the reflection mimicked it. Everything seemed fine. Maybe it had just been his mind playing tricks. But then, as he turned his back to leave the room, he knew something terrifying. His reflection was still looking at him. A cold shiver ran down his spine. Without looking back, Gale ran out of the room and slammed the door shut. The day passed slowly. He tried to forget what he had seen, played outside, helped his grandmother in the kitchen, but an unsettling feeling wouldn't leave him. Something about the mirror felt wrong. That night, as he lay in bed, Grandma Isolda entered his room. "Sleep well, Gale," she said, smiling, and turned off the light. But before leaving, she hesitated. She stood there for a moment, as if she wanted to say something. "Oh, and never look at the mirror after midnight, okay?" She closed the door before he could ask why. Gale tried to sleep, but that sentence kept echoing in his head. Never look at the mirror after midnight. Outside, the frogs croaked. The wind howled, making the trees sway. Time passed slowly, and curiosity started to grow inside him. And what if he just took a quick peek, just to prove to himself that it was nonsense? The clock on the nightstand read 11:59 p.m. Only 1 minute left. His chest rose and fell rapidly. Should he do it? Gale was about to break the only rule that could keep him safe. Gale pulled the blanket up to his face, trying to resist the growing urge to look at the mirror. But the more he fought it, the stronger his mind seemed to push him toward it. The clock now read 11:59 and 30 seconds. The night sound seemed louder. The wind howled outside, making the windows rattle. The wooden beams of the house creaked, as if something were moving on the roof. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Don't look at the mirror. Then he heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, rhythmic. The same sound from the night before. Only this time, it came from inside the room. His body froze. His wide eyes stared into darkness. The sound was no longer coming from the locked door at the end of the hallway. It was coming from the mirror. His heart pounded against his ribs. His breath was heavy, his sweaty fingers clutching the blanket. He tried to convince himself it was just his imagination. But then the sound came again. Tap, tap, tap. This time, louder. Gale clenched his eyes shut, trying to convince himself it was just the wind, just a trick of his mind. But then, something worse happened. A quiet laugh. Soft, slow, coming from the corner of the room. His muscles locked up. He didn't want to look. He knew he shouldn't look. But what if someone was there? What if it was waiting for him to look? The clock made a faint click. Midnight. Time seemed to stop. Everything fell silent. No wind, no frogs, no sound at all. The only thing Gale could hear was his own shaky breathing. Then a whisper. Look at me. Gale turned his head. His eyes locked onto the mirror. And then he saw it. The whisper made Gale's blood run cold. Look at me. The voice was low, almost gentle. But something about it was wrong. Twisted, Gale kept his eyes fixed on the ceiling, breathing fast. If I don't look, it will go away. It was just a dream, a nightmare. He was alone in the room. Then his mattress sank, as if someone had just sat beside him. Gale felt the weight pressing against his leg, but he did not move. The air was heavy, suffocating. A strange smell filled the room, old, damp, like something that had been locked away for decades. And then it came again. Tap, tap, tap. But this time, it was right next to his bed. His fingers clenched the blanket, his knuckles turning white. His instincts screamed at him, don't look. But then, the thing beside him whispered again. Why won't you look, Gale? I'm already looking at you. A chill ran down his spine. How did it know his name? He bit his lip, his body frozen, trying to hold back a scream. Silence. The weight on the bed vanished. Maybe it was over. Maybe it was all in his head. But then, the voice came from inside the mirror. If you won't look, I will look for you. Gale heard the sound of glass cracking, like something was trying to come out. Gale couldn't take it anymore. The terror was so overwhelming that his body moved on its own. He turned his head, his eyes locked onto the mirror in the corner of the room. And then he saw it. The glass was cracked, a long fracture pulsing in the center, like an open wound. But that wasn't the worst part. His reflection was wrong. Gale blinked, his heart hammering. The reflection blinked too, but there was a delay, as if it was a second behind him. The eyes in the mirror were darker, sunken, empty like two black voids. And the smile, oh God, that smile. It stretched too far, revealing too many teeth, as if the face had been pulled beyond what was natural. Then the reflection took a step forward. But Gale hadn't moved. The reflection pressed its hands against the glass. The fingers were too long, the nails dark and sharp, scraping against the surface with an eerie screech. Gale felt his breath catch. What is that? And then the reflection spoke without opening its mouth. The voice echoed inside Gale's head. It's too late now. The reflection's hand slipped through the mirror. The fingers passed in the glass like water. And before Gale could react, he felt something ice-cold wrap around his wrist. He tried to scream, but his voice wouldn't come out. The reflection pulled, and Gale was dragged into the mirror. Gale felt his body shatter as he passed through the glass. For a moment, it was as if he had broken into 1,000 pieces and was being stitched back together. When his feet touched the ground, he realized he was no longer in his room. The farmhouse was different. The walls were darker, the wooden beams rotten and covered in something black and slimy. The air was thick with an unbearable stench, moist, stale, and decayed. He looked around. There were no windows, no doors, only endless darkness beyond the broken furniture and the old bed where he had been sleeping just moments ago. And then he looked at the mirror. On the other side of the glass, in the real room, was his reflection, or at least something that looked like him. It had his shape, his face, his clothes, but its smile was too wide. The thing raised a hand and waved at him, slowly, mockingly, Then it turned around and walked away. Gail!